After all the speculation, we finally have some concrete answers. Reeves just delivered the autumn 2025 budget. And if I am being perfectly honest, the news isn't great. If you own a rental property or you're seriously considering becoming a landlord right now, I need you to watch this. The Chancellor just handed down something that's going to hit your wallet hard, and it's happening in less than 18 months. The Office for Budget Responsibility is already warning us about what comes next. So let's break down exactly what just happened, what it means for your money, and what you should be doing about it right now. Before we break this down any further, if you want to understand the hidden policy shifts reshaping your finances and property wealth, go ahead and gently tap that subscribe button now. Property Brief UK provides clear, timely insights and summaries that keep you one step ahead. Okay, so here's the headline. From April 2027, every pound of profit you make from renting out property is going to be taxed at 2% higher rates. That means the basic rate goes from 20% to 22%. The higher rate jumps from 40% to 42%. And the additional rate climbs from 45% to 47%. For many landlords, this is on top of everything else they're already paying. Now you might be thinking, 2% doesn't sound massive. But this isn't 2% of your property price, it's 2% higher on your actual profits. So if you're a landlord running tight margins already, which most of you are, this is taking a meaningful chunk out of your returns. The government says this will raise about £500 million a year. But they're not targeting investment portfolios. This hits individual landlords who hold properties in their own names. That's the meat and potatoes of the private rental sector. Here's what makes this different from the national insurance scare we all braced for. Everyone was genuinely worried about a potential 8% national insurance hit on rental income. Landlord groups were mobilizing. There were genuine concerns this could be the final straw, but that didn't happen. Instead, we got this quieter 2% hike on income tax itself. Quieter doesn't mean kinder though, it's just more politically digestible. So how does the government justify this? They say it's about fairness. They say a landlord earning £25,000 from a rental property pays nearly £1,200 less in tax than a tenant earning the same wage, because rental income isn't hit with national insurance. But here's where it gets tricky. The government's also changing something called relief allocation. Going forward, if you've got mixed income, say you work a job and you also rent out property, the reliefs now get carved out to your employment income first. That means less of your rental profits get shielded from tax. You're losing ground on two fronts. It sounds technical, but the reality is brutal. Landlords who've built portfolios over years, who've carefully managed their tax positions with their accountants, suddenly find they've got less shelter when the government changes the playbook. A landlord I know with 5 properties spent 2 years optimizing her structure. She just found out half that planning is now worthless. That's what relief reallocation does. It retroactively undermines years of legitimate tax strategy. Now let's talk about who really pays, because it's not landlords absorbing this quietly. The Office for Budget Responsibilities Analysis is crystal clear. They say the measures announced in this budget reduce returns to private landlords. They've been warning this will happen for a decade. Successive hits from Section 24 mortgage interest restrictions, stamp duty premiums, rising regulation, Renters' Rights Act compliance costs. But now they're saying plainly, continued erosion of landlord returns will reduce the supply of rental property over the longer run. And there's one thing that happens when supply drops and demand stays the same. Rents go up. The OBR is forecasting a steady long-term rise in rents if demand outstrips supply. We're not talking pennies here. Estimates are running at an extra £20 to £25 monthly per tenant by the time this filters through the market. For someone paying £1,200 a month already, that's another £240 to £300 a year. Multiply that across millions of renters and you're looking at billions in additional rent payments. And remember, most of your rental costs have already gone up. Insurance is up. Maintenance is up. That new Renters' Rights Act coming next spring. That's adding compliance costs, more paperwork, more legal exposure, potentially higher accountancy fees. You either absorb all of that and watch your profit margin disappear into single digits, or you pass it to tenants. Most landlords will pass it on. But it's not just income tax. The budget also brought what everyone's calling the mansion tax. From April 2028, anyone owning a property worth more than £2 million faces a brand new council tax surcharge on top of everything else. We're talking £2,500 to £7,500 extra per year, depending on the property band. It's a tiered system, but the point is the same. More money out, no more money in. At first glance, this affects about 100,000 properties, mostly concentrated in London and the South East. So if you're in those areas, you might be facing this. But here's what matters. This is another annual holding cost with no corresponding income increase. Property developers and portfolio landlords now have to factor thousands more into their yearly outgoings. And where do you think that money comes from? If you're renting out a high-value property, this eats into your net yield. A £5,000 annual surcharge on a property that's generating £20,000 a year in net rental income is a 25% reduction right there. That changes the investment calculus entirely. Some landlords will decide the numbers no longer work, and they'll sell. And when they do, it reduces supply again, pushing rents even higher for premium properties in high-value areas. If you've got holiday lets or Airbnb properties, the pain is even sharper. Back in April, the government abolished the furnished holiday lettings tax regime. Suddenly, those nice advantages, full mortgage interest relief, capital allowances on furnishings, the 10% capital gains tax rate, they're gone. Lots of people rebranded their operations, moved to limited companies, found workarounds. But the fundamental economics changed overnight. Now add to that the new local visitor levies. Councils and mayors have just been given powers to collect a tourist tax on short-term stays. We've already seen Edinburgh move first with a 5% overnight charge kicking in from July next year. London's considering it. Other cities will follow, so holiday let operators are looking at margin compression from both directions, higher costs because of the FHL abolition, and now a tax on every guest night. That levy compounds. If you're running holiday lets at 70% occupancy, that 5% charge hits every occupied night. Here's the frustrating part for tenants and landlords alike. The government had the chance to do something on local housing allowance. That's the cap on housing support for low-income renters. It's been frozen for years while rents have climbed steadily. For people on benefits trying to find a one-bedroom flat, they're often stuck. The allowance won't cover market rents in their area. Not touched in this budget. Not a penny moved. Stamp duty on properties. No movement there either. Green upgrade costs that are meant to help the sector get homes to net zero, reduce bills for tenants, meet environmental targets. Nothing. No grants, no extended allowances, no support. So landlords are getting hit with new taxes and new costs, but they're not getting any offsetting support. And tenants relying on local housing allowance aren't getting help either, even as their rent pressure builds from shrinking supply. It's completely one-sided. It's an imbalance, and the OBR is flagging that plainly in their forecasts. Let's step back and think about what this means in the long term. The research is already showing 1 in 4 landlords are planning to sell up within 12 months. New data shows 46,449 buy-to-let companies were set up between January and September this year. Landlords are moving to limited companies to find tax advantages and shield themselves from these changes. But here's the problem. Even that workaround is getting squeezed as reliefs get reallocated. What the government isn't seeing is this. Repeated tax hits don't change minds gradually. They accelerate decisions. A landlord who was on the fence about staying in the market now sees a reason to exit. They sell. The supply of rental homes shrinks. Demand doesn't change. Rents rise. Tenants who were just keeping their heads above water now can't afford the neighborhood they live in anymore. Local economies lose workers who can't afford the rent. Schools lose pupils when families move out. Industry groups are sounding alarms. This isn't just bad for landlord profits, it's structurally destabilising the rental market at a time when nearly 1/4 of all UK households are in rental accommodation. That's over 5 million households depending on a private rental sector that's getting smaller and more expensive. So when does this hit? The income tax rise comes April 2027. That's 18 months away. The mansion tax comes April 2028. The visitor levy powers are being given to mayors now, with a 12-week consultation running. So it's all moving, and it's all happening faster than most people realise. What you should do now is talk to a tax advisor if you've got a portfolio. Look at your numbers. Because some landlords will restructure into limited companies before April 2027 to lock in the old rules. Some will sell properties before they can't afford to keep them. Some will just tighten margins and push rents up. Whatever you do, don't wait until April 2027 wondering what you should have planned for. That's too late. The takeaway is this: the housing crisis doesn't get solved by squeezing landlords and leaving rents to rise. That strategy just creates winners and losers, and tenants lose. But that's where we're headed. Are you a landlord affected by this, or a renter watching the supply shrink and wondering what's next? What did you make of the budget? What did you hope would happen but never did? Did any of your fears become reality? Drop a comment below. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Property Brief UK for more essential updates on the UK property market. We cover everything from legislation changes and market trends to practical advice for tenants, landlords, and investors. Ring the notification bell so you never miss an update that could affect your property decisions. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.